between myth, politics, and the cunning of a woman who nearly conquered Rome. History teaches us to hate her before truly understanding her. Cleopatra, a name shrouded in gossip, eroticism, and slander for thousands of years. She is portrayed as a dangerous woman, a lure for men, a poison to empires. As if her only weapons were a beautiful face and a royal bed. But the question is simple and deadly to the myth. If Cleopatra was simply beautiful, why did Rome fear her so much? Cleopatra was not born into a welcoming world. She was born in a dying Egypt, ruled by the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek family that had long since lost its prestige. Egypt was no longer the center of the world. Rome was the true ruler. And Cleopatra was just a woman. In the ancient world, that was enough to ensure one thing. She was supposed to be a pawn, not a player. But from a young age, Cleopatra did something few rulers ever did. She studied. She mastered more than 7 languages. She understood Greek philosophy, Roman politics, mob psychology, and most dangerously, the way her enemies thought. Cleopatra wasn't preparing to be queen. She was preparing to survive in a predatory world. When her father died, Cleopatra ascended the throne alongside her brother Ptolemy XIII. But this wasn't a partnership, it was a cold war. The palace advisors hated Cleopatra. She was too intelligent, too outspoken, too independent. And in politics, a thinking woman is a threat. Cleopatra was deposed, banished, removed from power. At this point, most rulers fall, but Cleopatra disappeared. And when she returned, history changed. When Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt, Rome was hungry for power, and Egypt was the ultimate prize. Cleopatra knew one thing: she couldn't fight Rome with armies, she had to conquer it with her mind. So she smuggled herself into the palace, wrapped in a carpet, and appeared before Caesar. This scene has often been reviled by history as erotic drama. But what transpired was a meeting of two political predators. Cleopatra didn't seduce, she negotiated. She offered Egypt stability, wheat wealth, a strategic alliance. And Caesar, a genius of war, saw something far more dangerous than beauty: a leader of equal standing. Cleopatra returned to power, not as a puppet of Rome, but as an ally. She gave birth to Caesar's child, not as a love affair, but as a political declaration. Rome trembled, because for the first time, the blood of Rome and Egypt was mingled, and that meant the future of the empire could change hands. After Caesar's assassination, the world was thrown into chaos. And once again, Cleopatra was at the center of the vortex. History accuses Cleopatra of being in love. The truth, however, was far colder. Mark Antony was no lover, he was an instrument of power. Cleopatra gave him what he needed: money, supplies, Eastern legitimacy. In return, Cleopatra got something greater: the opportunity to control Rome from behind the scenes. She didn't want to be queen of Rome, she wanted Rome to depend on her. And it almost worked. Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, saw the danger. He knew he couldn't defeat Cleopatra with a sword. So he used a far more cruel weapon: narrative. Cleopatra was portrayed as an Eastern sorceress, a sex-hungry woman, a moral threat to Rome. And Rome believed it. The Battle of Actium broke out. It wasn't just a war of weapons, it was a war of images. And Cleopatra lost. When everything fell apart, Cleopatra had a choice: be captured and humiliated, or die in complete control. She chose death. Not out of desperation, but because Rome would never possess her body as a trophy. snakes, poison, or some other method. The details are hazy. What is clear is that her death was a final assertion of power. She died a queen, not a prisoner. The twist history ever told. And now, listen carefully. Cleopatra wasn't a queen who lost because of love. She lost because she was too close to victory. If she had lived a few years longer, if Antony had won just one battle, then the modern world might not speak the language of Roman law. Perhaps Western history wouldn't have centered on Rome. Perhaps Egypt would have ruled the world. And the cruelest twist: Cleopatra isn't remembered as a statesman and genius because history was written by men who fear such a brilliant woman. She didn't fail because she was weak. She was destroyed because she was too dangerous to be allowed to live even in memory. And to this day, we still remember her myth, not the real fear she instilled in the heart of the world's greatest empire. Cleopatra never wanted to be remembered. She wanted to rule. And perhaps that was her greatest sin.